And I think it was, I can't remember who now. I remember thinking about the disability community is very resourceful and quite used to problem solving and hacking their surroundings and just learning from one another, and a lot of it are on forums where people are giving tips and DIY tips for like a bag, or like how to fix a wheel on their chair and things like that. And I just saw that forum as like being this really wonderful space and exchange of dialogue and ideas. I'm a workaholic. I joke that I have no real hobby anymore apart from, well, work is my hobby because I love what I do so much, and I love designing. I love hearing people's stories. The wonderful thing about fashion is you get to try different personas through clothing, and by wearing a certain outfit you convey a different message. But from a young age I've always been into creativity, the arts. I studied theatre. I was longing to move from Wales, which is where I'm from, to come to New York. I felt like fashion was this distant, glamorous world that I just wasn't part of. And I felt like I really wanted to be part of that, like discover who I was, I just felt that everyone had the same dream. So then I was like, oh, I guess this is it. This must be what fashion is. And I was a bit disheartened by it all. I felt that if I wanted to do something in fashion, I had to make it count. And I wanted to do something that I just would be excited to wake up doing every day. And I just felt like churning out the same design wasn't going to cut it for me. It was a younger family member who challenged me to think about, he has cerebral palsy, and he challenged me to really consider the accessibility of whatever I was designing, and to consider people with disabilities into the design process from the very get-go, before concept. The challenge was just like, very much welcomed, something I'd never considered before. And that's when I just started talking about it in the classroom, saying, we only have this standing mannequin and it doesn't even represent the most of society. And just having these moments of like, oh, wow, I think we're not even serving like basically anyone. Like, who are we even designing for these days?
How have you been able to find people to offset your own skill set and tease and creating these line of wheelchair accessories? Because as I've read, it wasn't necessarily your core skill set.
A lot of press and a lot of PR want to focus on kind of like one person, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And for me, and what we do with the company is, it's not about one person, but it's about like kind of like a movement. It's really about a long-term vision, and we want to kind of like set the foundation for. I'm not personally disabled. I do not have a disability, and so who am I really to tell people how they should like wear things or use things? There is absolutely the knowledge that I do not have. So I think number one is making sure that you have voices and differentiating voices who are people who have disabilities, and again, varying disabilities. So one person's experience is not the same as someone else's. Making sure you have that from the get-go. The other thing is making sure, and my background is in fashion and apparel. Since we specifically are looking at the wheelchair, it's a very robust design, and something that takes a beating daily from all the elements, whether it's rain or whether it's curb cuts not being present, and takes a lot of friction. And of course, soft goods and apparel aren't going to cut it. They'll just fall apart or they'll break, and we know things have to be hard wearing, and that is not my skill. My skill is in aesthetics and kind of what makes things fashionable, and the soft goods,
which is also crucial in the process.
Exactly. And I think a combination of marrying my skill set and bringing on Jonas Kajostila, who is the head of industrial design, who I design alongside, who is honestly a champion. He came in, at the early days, and he constantly challenges me, and we have those creative arguments along the way. But again, we also, I think what's really important about the company is we don't get married to any one thing. We are as quick to fall in love with something as we are to throw it out the window if we think it doesn't work. And I think just not getting married to something and having people, and not being so, uptight about our designs, when someone says, hey, this is not going to work for me, and not try to like force it and make it work, but accept that, all right, we missed the mark, we got it wrong. And having that like permission to fail and fail is like the most important like trait of the company, I think. And so, bringing people into the room who are very diverse, who have different backgrounds, different skill set, there is only one way it's going to work, and it's that way. One thing that is the best joy about what we do is everyone has their own way of using things and creating their own system in a way that is so ingenious and so creative. And honestly, it is motivational and inspiring because, and I hate to say, the word inspiring, but it is inspiring. When we designed the product, we designed with, alongside a bunch of people that were using it in a specific way. And then of course we'll hand the product to someone else and they'll use it in a way that we never anticipated. And we were just like, oh my God, like that's so cool. And so we are constantly getting taught, making sure that you constantly are learning and developing and improving. It was the biggest takeaway, that like you have to remember that you don't know everything and you have to be open to that constant learning. When I started the company about 2 years ago, I had this fear of I don't want to be a person that takes away a voice, but I want to be part of it. Like I want to be a movement. This is the reason why it's not called Lucy Jones Show, like it's called Ffora, and it stands for the word forum, which is a place where your voice is heard. The name, again, of course, I needed it to stand for something. I needed it to represent something. I remember thinking about the disability community is very resourceful and quite used to problem solving and hacking their surroundings and just learning from one another, and a lot of it are on forums where people are giving tips and DIY tips for like a bag, or like how to fix a wheel on their chair and things like that. And I just saw that forum as like being this really wonderful space and exchange of dialogue and ideas. But then in all the focus groups we've had in the very early stages, people just kept saying like, oh, I love when you do these. I feel like we can just offload and get it out there. And it just felt like it was an exchange of ideas and dialogue. And yeah, the word fora is Latin, or plural, sorry, for the word forum. We put the business out into the world. It was very specific, even though we have big visions to expand our product line, but we had to start somewhere. So we launched the company, and it was this, product that was affixes to the lower tubes of manual chairs. And then of course we saw people putting it on walkers, putting it on crutches, and basically telling us, actually, I can put it on other things that you may not necessarily had thought about. And of course we had thought about that, but we thought it was going to come later. We thought it was going to come much later on in the business, and now we're like, oh, we have to move now. Like this is what the people want. So of course people are emailing us and suggesting things. People are like, oh, I love this, but if you had done this, and we're like, we understand. And so that's what we've been having to do. That's how we keep things fresh, is people are just telling us like what they want to see, and have we considered this, and it would be great if we could do that. And I think that's how we keep things moving and fresh, and there is no shortage of ideas. We work with people who carry Allen wrenches and tools with them so they can tighten up aspects of their wheelchair if it got loose, like a brake or something like that. And I remember thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great to have, like, originally the tool was going to be part of the design. And then I thought, and after learning and hearing more about how people would transition, out of bed, or like, using the restroom or something, could that nick someone's leg, or could that accidentally hurt someone? And then we were just thinking about, oh, wait, hang on, that would stick out, and that's not great. So then eliminating the tool from the design and making it separate. And then we realized it could be a keyring, and that could also work for other elements of the screws on chairs. I just really want to build a wonderful team. That's like on my mind right now. I would love to be able to have a number of collaborations that are a mixture of working with the medical, like working with the mobility industry and the medical device industry, but also working and figuring out the tension with mainstream fashion brands, but making sure that they're the right brands and the right collaborations as well. I would love that, because I think that would be a way to show those companies also, this can introduce you to a customer you may not have considered. And I think that would be wonderful if that happened, and something I'm working on too.